Hi, my name is Bruno Mattei. I'm French. I live in London. I'm a video producer at day and I'm an audiovisual artist at night. I've started as a VJ, then I moved on doing video projections for shows, dance shows, operas, etc. And I've started doing installations using projection techniques quite recently. And then I met Carol at Goldsmiths University and we started to develop a technique which is combining our skills. So she will tell you about her skills. Mine are more audiovisual, music composition and projection mapping.
Hi, I'm Carol McGilvray and I'm just finishing my doctorate at Goldsmiths University where I met Bruno. Together we've developed, it's a unique skill set really. I come from animation and sculpture and film editing, so I'm more analogue and narrative. I'm not a digital native like Bruno, although I do get digital now. And we've developed together this way of creating screenless animation and called the diasynchronoscope or the diasynchronic technique. Rather a mouthful, I know. That's what happens when you're writing PhDs. And this is what we're using to investigate artistically, and it's very exciting because it's a whole new medium and it's got its own new grammar that we're developing with it.
So if you could just describe the piece.
The piece is called Conversio, which is actually the Latin for revolution, and the theme of the festival is revolution. Revolution works really well for us because we use a lot of loops and a lot of turning, but also our name artistically is Trope, and it turns out that rather fortuitously, Conversio can also be the Latin for trope or turn. So that also works rather nicely for us. The piece is a conversation between the old Lincoln of Roman times and Lincoln now, and actually Lincoln before Roman times as well.
It happens in Poston Gate, so it's an old site of a Roman, well, there's an old Roman ruin which you can visit anytime in Lincoln. Which is an amazing space for us. So our work is site-specific. It's trying to use the space, and it's quite dark. Our work has to be experienced in the dark. So we're revisiting the space. We're giving it a new immersive audiovisual experience for the visitors.
So this was made especially for the Frequency Festival. Was it made there, or did you make it back in your studio in London?
So we came a few times, we did a couple of recce's to see the space, and it was a mixture of both. We had to prepare as much as we could in our studio, but of course it's smaller than the space, so there's quite a few things that we had to try out on the day, 3 days before we opened here. Luckily it all worked, and it all worked as planned, but it was a mixture of planning and seeing how it works, because it's site-specific, is the nature of the site-specific artworks.
Yeah. Did it fit how you wanted it to when you came along and tried it out?
It did and it didn't. The place, even though you do the recce's and you think everything's right, there's always things you have to change. So we'd spent the first 2 days tweaking it a bit, and now we're very happy. But right at the beginning, it's quite difficult because you're integrating 3 things and you didn't know if they were going to work together. You hope they do, and our experience tells us they will. It's the biggest artwork we've done. We've done because it's screenless animation. We've done ones where you can actually walk around the whole thing, which is great because that's one of the great things about being screenless. But here, people they can move around, but they can't move so far. But there are 3 massive objects that are really 3 massive elements, I suppose.
You said about bringing sort of the old aspects of Lincoln and the new aspects. What's the sort of overall inspiration of it? I mean, you have, the chain sort of hanging down, and then you've got the stunning bits at the beginning. I love those bits when they all are joined together. Where did the inspiration come from in the first place?
Well, mostly we spent a month after our first visit going, what are we going to do? It's such an amazing space, we must use it. One of the things is that it has a very big chunk of ruined wall, which conceptually is fascinating, the old Roman wall that took the river, that the river went up to. But I have to say, aesthetically, it looks like a pile of rubble, a big slug of brown rubble in the middle of the room. So that was difficult to deal with aesthetically, but we did develop a new technique that integrated that.
And the concept is kind of cycle. So it starts with nature, and then because it was a place where there was exchange of goods from the river to the city. So the chain represents this kind of human exchange, and like you would have in the docks. And then you have all these stones, so it represents the building. And because Lincoln is lots of layers, actually, it's been built on layers, and we are the beginning, like layer 0. So we're kind of trying to represent this kind of layering of construction, and at the end it becomes more and more digital, and it's kind of glitching, and it's kind of breaking, and there's this idea of a cycle, and it starts again. But what we're doing is we're really working on two fronts. We're trying to develop a technique which is unique and is something we've done ourselves. So every time we do new artwork, we're refining it. And on the other end, so that's a technical approach. And on the other end, we're trying to have a message, as you'll do with any installation art. So,
do you think there's possibility of taking this piece elsewhere at all?
No, it would never go anywhere else. This is it. This is its place. But bits of it and ideas from it may go to other places. But as an integrated whole, it will never. It's made for that site.
Bruno, do you like to take it anywhere else?
Technically, that can be taken anywhere else, but we tend to create something new every time because it's site-specific. Technically, if you have a space with similar dimensions, we could take it somewhere else. But we wouldn't have a Roman wall behind, so maybe it wouldn't work as well.
Yeah, you can't just take the Roman ruin with you, can you?
No, so we like to be inspired by the space that we see, and that's why we do something new every time. Because we want to play with the new technique, we don't want to reproduce the same things.
No, that's true. What would you like the people that are visiting Frequency Festival and they're coming down to see Conversio, what do you want them to take from it? What sort of thing do you want them to experience?
It's what's lovely about it is that you have to be there to see it. So often people come out and say, wow, that's amazing, I want to see it again, I want to bring my family and friends. It's a word of mouth art piece in many ways. It's hard to describe on paper or without seeing it. You have to be there.
What's interesting is that we've been writing, Carol's been writing quite a lot of papers about it, and in one of the things, there's psychology and stuff. I'm not going to go into that. But what's interesting about it is like anyone sees it moving. From young kids to there's nothing to take with you. You just experience it. This is the way we see life objects interacting with you. So everyone sees the movement, and because it's quite new, it's quite it's an immersion that we want to create. Really, a sculptural immersion in movement.
Have you seen different reactions from different ages or people with different backgrounds? Do they sort of interpret it in different ways?
Some of the children, really, in particular, they're lovely because they really give you that clean emotional response, and they laugh a lot and want to know how it works and get very excited by it. And animation is joyful for everyone. The technique seems to create a sort of hypnotic effect on people. They find it quite mesmeric, and the synchronization of the sound with the image, it helps that.
I personally noticed the sound more on the second time round. How did that come into the piece? Was it the sort of visuals that came first and the sound, or the sound and the visuals?
So this piece explores sound very closely as well, but the pieces we've done before maybe a bit more. It was about visual music more. But there's still a big element, especially the beginning with the notes of visual music. So the idea is that an overall structure is being represented with two things. One is visual and moves, and one is music. So you have this idea of structure, and because our objects are there all the time, it's like playing an instrument. It takes a very long time to set them up, so the idea is to reuse some objects in different times and different patterns every time. So it's a bit like playing music. So we're trying to play music with the objects and the images.
Sort of an audio-visual dance going on.
Yes, and you've got constraints from the movements, and you try to make music with it.
What's your experience been so far of the festival? I don't know if you've been able to look at some other pieces, or if there's any that you'd like to see, or you want to see, or you have seen.
Oh, the first 3 days we were like moles living in the basement tweaking this. Today is the first day we've got out and seen some of the things, and it's a lovely day, and it's just so great to see these artworks. It's so surprising and exciting when you see a flag and you go in and it's just, you don't know what you're going to see. I love it.
It's funny, yes. Today is the first time we had two great helpers, and it's the first time we could get out of the site. So we only had 2 hours recce, but it's great. And coming back to the site, knowing more about Lincoln, there was something different. It looked different because now you know what it is, to see the flag, to go in the space, to come out of it. And we want to see other parts. We haven't been to the cathedral yet and all these the artworks there, so I'm going to check this out this afternoon because today is the first day we can visit. So.
Well, I hope you enjoy your experience of Frequency Festival, and I hope you get to see as much as you like. Thank you very much for talking to me.